Hello, and welcome to episode 139 of the Book Binge, where we're doing something a little bit different, kind of like a discussion video of sorts, but I basically just want to go over in this one where I'm currently at with the Wheel of Time. Of course, this is coming just a week ahead of when my Wheel of Time diary videos for the Fires of Heaven will start coming out, because I will be starting reading this book basically within the next few days. It might not be this weekend that I actually start reading the book because of going on vacation. Well, sort of a vacation. I'm going out of town for the next few days, and reading time can always be a little bit unpredictable when something like that is involved. But yeah, because I'm starting this book and going to be reading it over the next month and a half to 2 months, depending on how that goes, I want to talk about where I'm at with the series because, it's a new year, starting off a new book in the series. I went through 4 of the books in 2023, those, of course, being Eye of the World, Great Hunt, Dragon Reborn, and Shadow Rising. So this video is going to hit kind of a few different points. I just have some rough notes given over here for me to kind of discuss some stuff as of how I'm feeling it right now. But let's just kind of go into how I felt. Like I said, in 2023, I did read the first 4 books of the series. I really enjoyed my time with the series so far. Of course, I went into this, with a little bit apprehensive, worried that maybe I won't like it because the series doesn't have quite as positive of a reputation anymore as, say, it used to. But in reading the first 4 books last year, how did I feel about them? Well, I really loved the first 3. Started to feel a tad burnt out by book 4, which is part of why I took a little bit of a longer break in between the Shadow Rising and the Fires of Heaven. Book 1, Eye of the World, was a huge surprise for me. I expected to not like that very much, or I expected to feel pretty middling about it, like maybe 3 stars. It ended up being a 4.5 star that I rounded up to 5 just because of how surprised I was by it. I really liked it. I thought basically everything about it was a very good time. There's one chapter, that structure, I was a little bit confused by, that didn't really serve a purpose. The chapter itself did serve a purpose, but the structure of it didn't serve a purpose. And then the ending was a little bit rushed and confusing, but that's kind of a trend with Robert Jordan in general, as I've come to discover. But I was surprised by how much I enjoyed that book. Book 2, The Great Hunt, was pretty dang good. I thought that there was a lot of stuff that it did a little bit better than Eye of the World. There was some stuff that I preferred, maybe a little bit less. Generally, I find the two of them to be on par. I think The Great Hunt is a slightly better book than Eye of the World, but I think I might prefer Eye of the World a little bit more just because of that. Is nostalgia even a word that's applicable here? Probably not, but that sort of nostalgic feeling that I get thinking about it is just like, yeah, that was a book that I didn't expect to like, but I really did. So I kind of have that going for it. I thought that The Dragon Reborn was phenomenal. It is my favorite book of the series so far. I thought it closed off basically that first trilogy, that first arc of the series brilliantly. I thought the pacing of it was good. I thought the climax was fantastic. I really liked basically everything about it. So, I really enjoyed those first 3 books. 4 was decent, but not the best. Just a couple of weeks ago at this point, I would have reviewed the Shadow Rising here on the channel, so if you want to check out that review, it goes a lot more in depth into the reasons why it is not my favorite book of the series, which is an unpopular opinion. My least favorite book of the series so far. Yes, out of the first 4 books, the Shadow Rising is my least favorite of them so far. I go more into that in the review, and that is probably my most controversial opinion about the series so far. Even more than liking Dragon Reborn the best is liking the Shadow Rising the least. But that's my general thoughts on the 4 books of the series so far. I do plan to read a few more this year. So what does that look like? Well, I'm starting book 5 next week. Well, this weekend maybe. So, within the week, I'll be starting book 5 and doing my first diary on it. And I also plan to read Lord of Chaos, book 6 this year as well. But when will that be? That'll probably be a little bit later in the last quarter of the year, sometime similar to when I read The Shadow Rising. So why am I taking another big break in between these couple books? I haven't started this one yet. Well, there's a couple reasons for this. I plan to read Infinite Jest this year, this summer, in fact. Basically, as soon as I'm done with Fires of Heaven, I plan to start Infinite Jest, and that's going to be my main read. I don't feel like it would be a wise decision to read Infinite Jest at the same time as a chonky book like Lord of Chaos, especially if, I feel like it's too soon to read Lord of Chaos right after Fires of Heaven. Depending on how things go, that could be a very bad idea, and I don't want to risk that being a bad result for me as a reader. So I may include New Spring in the middle of the year depending on how I feel. Because of some of my other reading plans. Like I said, I plan to split books 5 and 6 quite a bit. 5 reading right now, book 6 is going to be a lot later in the year, so I feel like maybe I should read something else in Wheel of Time in the midst of that big like 6-month break or something like that. So like that would make sense. And because, you know, New Spring is frequently recommended as being read right after book 5, right after book 7, or in published order after book 10, it makes sense for me to just include it here. I don't see any reason why I shouldn't do that. So that's basically what I plan to do. I plan to read Fires of Heaven, then New Spring, then Lord of Chaos all this year. So I'll get through a few more of these books, but it is definitely going to be slow going for sure. And I'm sorry for that. I also want to justify myself a little bit and say that I'm letting myself take these long breaks to keep myself sane and reduce some of my burnout and annoyance. Part of the reason why I didn't enjoy The Shadow Rising as much as the first 3 books came down to certain elements that I wasn't fully on board with, and like I said, a little bit of burnout. I think it came a little bit too soon after those first 3 books, and even though I went into that book rather excited and really enjoyed it at the start, when I got burnt out with Shadow Rising, I got really burnt out and started to get really pissed at certain things, and so it became a little bit harder to pick that up and read it at points. So I feel like if I'm taking longer breaks with these other books that are also very long, it'll probably do me a little bit better that way, and keep me more motivated to continue the series when otherwise I might be inclined to quit if I'm reading them too close together. I feel like it's better to err on the side of spacing them out more and giving myself more time than to burn through them back to back and hate myself for doing it. Just as, you know, someone running this channel, running my own review channel, this makes sense to me. This is why I've made this decision. With that all being said, however, I mentioned at the start of this that Fires of Heaven starts next week. So over the next couple months, March and April, maybe the next month and a half or so, we'll see how long it takes me to get through this. I want to read this a little bit faster than I did The Shadow Rising because 8 Wheel of Time diaries on one book is a bit excessive. I think getting that down to about 6 or so would be a little bit more preferable. And then I plan to break until this autumn or so and read Lord of Chaos in maybe October, November. Maybe that'll be November, December. I haven't fully decided yet, but somewhere in that last quarter of the year. But breaking that up with New Spring in June or July if I'm up for it. I will continue doing these diaries, I will continue the series, but I have been just taking a tiny step back and continuing to do so for the course of 2024, reassessing my schedule based on my reading speed, other reading interests, and kind of the way that going through the first 4 books in 2023 went for me. So that is where I currently stand in the Wheel of Time. The point is, I'm trying to keep this ball rolling without sending it into a ditch and, you know, crashing and burning essentially. So I'm enjoying my time with the series. I don't want to actively dislike it, so I can't keep quite the same schedule as I was thinking before. So that's just kind of the way things look for this year. With that being said, thank you guys for watching. If you did, if you're still interested in watching all the Wheel of Time diaries, those will be starting next Thursday. I'm actually really excited to be starting this again now because of the 2-month break after The Shadow Rising and the fact that I've read, I don't think, any actual fantasy, like especially not any like classic fantasy or anything like that in the last 2 months. So, you know, I've had a little bit of a break, not just from the series, but from the genre in general. So I think that'll help me dig into the series a little bit more, but I am excited to try this next one. So if you're interested in that, you can follow me along next week, starting with Wheel of Time Diary number 22, I think. That might be the wrong number, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I'll see you guys there.